Most re- Picture the most relaxed plant on earth. It grows almost by itself. It asks for very little. For thousands of years, holy men have praised it, festivals have celebrated it, and a god, an actual god, is said to love it. So farming it should be the easiest, most peaceful job in the ancient world, right? Just you, a sacred plant, and good vibes. Wrong. So very wrong. Because the moment a plant becomes valuable and holy and something the king can tax, your peaceful little farm becomes everyone's business. The priests want it, the taxman wants it, the festival crowds want it, and you, the poor soul actually growing it, are stuck in the middle of all of them. Today we find out why it sucked to be a Bhang farmer in ancient India. On this channel, we take the worst lives in history and ask one simple question: how bad was it really? And today's job comes with a surprising amount of stress for something so closely associated with relaxing. First, let's clear up what we're actually talking about, because there's a lot of confusion here. Bhang is a preparation made from the cannabis plant. Traditionally, the leaves and buds ground into a paste, often mixed into drinks or sweets, famously into a spiced milk drink. This isn't some fringe, hidden thing in Indian history. Bhang is woven deep into the culture, going back thousands of years. It shows up in ancient texts. It's tied to religious tradition. It is genuinely, properly old. And the key thing to understand is that Bhang wasn't seen the way a lot of people might assume. It wasn't purely a vice. It had a sacred dimension. It was associated with the god Shiva, one of the most important deities in all of Hinduism. In the stories and traditions, Bhang is connected to Shiva, and to this day, it's consumed during festivals like Maha Shivratri, the great night of Shiva, and Holi, the festival of colors. People drink it as part of the celebration, as part of devotion. So already your crop isn't just a crop, it's a religious object. And that changes everything about your life, mostly for the worse. Let's start with the plant itself, because being a farmer of anything in the ancient world was already a brutal life before we add the special complications. You're farming by hand, no machines. You're at the total mercy of the weather. Too little rain, your crop fails and you might starve. Too much, it rots. The wrong pests at the wrong time, and a year of work is gone. This is true for every ancient farmer, growing anything. It was backbreaking, uncertain, and one bad season from disaster. Now add the specifics of this particular plant. It needs the right climate, the right soil, the right timing for harvest. Bring it in too early or too late, and the quality drops. And then comes the processing, the careful work of preparing the leaves and buds into something usable, drying, grinding, all by hand, all labor-intensive. Every step is another chance to ruin months of effort. So before anyone holy or powerful gets involved, you're already doing one of the hardest jobs that has ever existed, with your entire survival riding on things you can't control. And here's where your special plant makes your life uniquely complicated. Let's talk about the holy problem. Because your crop is sacred, tied to Shiva, central to major festivals, you are not just feeding people, you're supplying religion. And that comes with expectations. When a huge festival like Maha Shivratri or Holi comes around, demand explodes. Suddenly everyone wants Bhang, all at once, for the celebration. Which sounds great for business, until you realize what it actually means for you. It means there is a deadline you absolutely cannot miss, set not by you, but by the religious calendar. The festival is on a fixed day. The plant grows on its own schedule, and it is your problem to make those two things line up. Miss it, have a bad harvest in a festival year, and you haven't just lost money. You failed to provide something people consider sacred for the most important days of devotion. The pressure is enormous, and it's a pressure most farmers never had to think about. Nobody's spiritual experience depended on whether the wheat came in on time. Yours did. And being attached to religion cuts both ways. Holy things attract holy authorities. Priests, temples, religious figures, people with real influence, have an interest in your crop. They may want to share. They may want to say in how it's grown, who it goes to, what's done with it. When your product is sacred, powerful people feel entitled to it. And when powerful people feel entitled to something you grow, you very rarely come out ahead. But the priests are not your biggest problem. Your biggest problem wears a crown. Here's a rule that holds across all of history. The moment something becomes valuable and popular, the state wants its cut. And intoxicants, things people crave and will reliably pay for, again and again, have been one of the most taxed and controlled categories of goods for thousands of years. Salt, alcohol, intoxicants of all kinds. Rulers everywhere figured out that if people want something badly enough, you can make a fortune taxing it. Bhang was no exception. Across Indian history, intoxicants were a source of revenue for those in power, regulated and taxed depending on the time and the ruler. And that's terrible news for you, the farmer, for one simple reason. You are the easiest person in the entire supply chain to squeeze. Think about it. The king can't tax a feeling, he can't tax the demand, but he can absolutely tax the guy with the field full of plants who can't exactly hide a farm. You're rooted to one spot. Your crop is visible. You can't run, you can't hide it, and you can't argue with an empire. So when the tax collector arrives, and he always arrives, you pay. Whatever's decided, you pay. And if the rules change next season and your obligations go up, you pay that too. You do all the hardest work, take all the weather risk, sweat through the entire growing season, and a big share of the value flows upward to people who never touched the soil. That's the deal for farmers throughout history, but it stings extra when your crop is valuable enough to fund palaces. And then there's the version of state attention that's even worse than taxing: banning. Because attitudes toward intoxicants were never stable. They shifted with rulers, with religious movements, with politics. One ruler might embrace your crop as part of tradition. The next might decide it's immoral, dangerous, or simply wants it controlled. And when the rules tighten, guess who's left holding a field full of a suddenly risky plant? You. Always you. This is the quiet nightmare of farming something that depends entirely on the mood of the powerful. You can do everything right, grow a perfect crop, time it beautifully, and still be ruined by a decision made far away in a court you'll never see, by people who'll never know your name. Your whole livelihood sits at the mercy of whether this year's authorities consider your sacred plant a blessing or a problem. So let's add it all up. Why did anyone do this? Why grow bhang at all, with all this hassle? For the same reasons people take hard jobs in any era. Because there was money in it. Real, reliable demand. The kind that comes back every single year. Because it might have been the crop your family had always grown, the knowledge passed down, the land you had. Because in a world with very few options, a valuable crop was a valuable crop, headaches and all. And maybe, for some, because there was a quiet pride in supplying something sacred, knowing that during the great festivals, in the devotion to Shiva, what you grew with your own hands was part of it. That's a real thing to hold on to. But it doesn't pay the king's tax, and it doesn't bring the rain. So, how bad was it to be a bhang farmer in ancient India? You did one of the hardest jobs in human history, farming by hand, at the total mercy of the weather, one bad season from disaster. On top of that, you grew something sacred, which meant religious deadlines you couldn't miss, and holy authorities who felt entitled to your work. You grew something valuable, which meant the state taxed you because you were the easiest one to tax. And you grew something whose very legality could shift with the mood of whoever happened to be in power, leaving you, every few years, wondering whether your life's work was a blessing or a crime. You grew the most relaxing plant on earth, and it gave you the least relaxing life imaginable. Everyone enjoyed the bhang. You enjoyed the stress. So the next time you see a festival, a celebration, people raising a cup to a god, remember that somewhere at the very start of it was a farmer in a field, doing the hard part, taking all the risk, and keeping almost none of the reward. If you enjoyed feeling stressed on behalf of the most chilled-out plant in history, you know what to do. Subscribe, and appreciate that your job, whatever it is, probably can't be banned by a king next Tuesday. Thanks for watching. Stay unlucky.